Hey now, what's going on everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka ReviewKingMB, and I like this. I like not only doing these videos, but seeing the reactions of people after I do a video like this. The original versus remake. This time I am doing Halloween. Yes, the original Halloween, which came out in 1978, and the remake, which came out in 2007. Let's go through this, break it down. Let's start with the directors. Obviously, the director of the original movie is John Carpenter. And if you think about it, he brought so much to this original movie. So much! Not just writing the film and the way that he directed it, the way that if you watched this movie, it's a slow burn, but I think it's effective in atmosphere, in suspense building. There's hardly any blood in this movie, but yet there's so much going on psychologically, mentally. You don't need very much blood to show that. With Dr. Loomis telling us so much about how evil Michael Myers is, that's enough. The remake has Rob Zombie. And I know there's tons of people online who commented on my review for this and will probably comment here and say how much they don't like Rob Zombie or how much they don't like the remake for this reason, for that reason. I've stated before, I'll say it again, I like the remake because it's different, and that's not always a good thing depending on the material, but you can't attempt to match or redo the same exact thing. I think, especially with Halloween, you have to do your own spin on it, and Rob Zombie certainly has his own spin when he does something. I don't always like what he does, but here he attempted to give Michael Myers a backstory, a more realistic backstory on how somebody like this would grow up, or what would bring them towards the point of just wanting to kill everybody. And I thought watching his backstory in this way was fascinating. It's some of my favorite parts of the film. Now let's talk about the main character, Laurie Strode, in both movies. In the original, like I said, you have Jamie Lee Curtis, and she's great. She was in so many horror movies at the time, around the same time, that sure, she was probably known as the Scream Queen or the go-to girl for this. She's very innocent, she's very nice, very sweet, and even seeing her babysit instead of going out and partying or doing something like that, it's why she has to be the one survivor. That brings me to the remake. This Laurie is played by Scout Taylor-Compton. And I know people shit on her as Laurie. I think most of that hatred comes from the sequel. But in the original, or the first remake with her, I think she's fine. She's not as innocent as Laurie from 1978, but that's because it's 2007, so many years later that you can't really portray, I mean you could I guess, but you can't really portray, or Rob Zombie didn't want to portray that innocent of a girl. He wanted to make a Laurie that was a little bit more fun, spunky, and just willing to joke around. Somebody you could maybe relate to a little bit more. And I think she pulled that off just fine. I don't mind her telling some dirty jokes with her mom as far as the bagel and stuff. I thought that was kind of funny. Michael Myers, the Shape. The original is played by Nick Castle, who I think for the original movies is my favorite Michael Myers. Just his build, his stature, he looks intimidating, and he looks like a guy who's in shape. Literally. Some of the actors who played Michael Myers in some of the sequels, like one in particular, I think it was Curse of Michael Myers, he was kind of pudgy, had kind of a gut. Maybe it's also The Mask. I've never seen any of the sequels get The Mask better looking than the first one. The remake is Tyler Mane. And Tyler Mane is officially the biggest Michael Myers we've ever had. He's the tallest, he's like 7 foot tall. He's huge, he's menacing, he's intimidating, some people might not like this, but he's the only Michael Myers that actually acts more human. There's something more real about this Michael Myers, which is clearly what Zombie was going for. Now, Dr. Loomis. Yes, in the original, he's played by Donald Pleasence. I can't get over how great Donald Pleasence played this character, because you buy everything that he's selling. This guy is telling the audience, not just the sheriff, but the audience, that we should be very afraid of this guy. He's evil. He's evil, and there's no rhyme or real good reason why he's doing what he's doing. In this first movie, we didn't know about the backstory as far as him being the brother of Laurie. That came later. I'm pretty sure they didn't know that in making this movie. This first movie, he's just going after Laurie because she's a random babysitter. Just a random girl who he's going after. Because why not? And that's almost more scary than finding out the connection between the two. Michael McDowell in the remake, I like him. Maybe people don't like his version of Loomis from the sequel as well, but I think in this first movie he does convey similar things about how evil he is, but you also get more of that relationship with him and Michael that you don't ever see in the originals, where you see him talking to Michael as a kid. You see them interacting back and forth. You see how far Michael goes off the rails. You see why he does give up on Michael after 15 years. Let's talk about the supporting characters, Annie and Lynda, both from the original, where they're your typical, they're friends with the innocent girl. They're kind of the bad influence. They're I don't want to say being sluts, but you know, and I'm not going to say I don't feel bad for them when they do die, because I do. Especially since Annie is the daughter of the sheriff, and more so in the sequel, the reaction of the sheriff when she's dead. Like, that does bring it close to home. In the remake, Annie and Lynda, you probably do get a little bit more about them. I mean, Danielle Harris plays Annie, and I like her a lot as an actress, and she does not die in this movie. So that's very cool that they made that change, at least for the remake. And Lynda, she gets the classic "say anything you like" scene and dies the same way. You have some of the kills. Let's talk about the kills in the original. Obviously, at the very beginning, we see Michael, his point of view of killing his sister, which that's even more disturbing. Not just that we're seeing Michael's point of view as he's killing his own sister, but it's almost like if you're first watching it, sure, they have the trailer and whatnot, but if you were first watching this movie, they show the point of view, they show him killing his sister, and then it's not till the parents come home, take the mask off, that you see it's like a 10-year-old kid who just did this. And I think that's what makes that much more disturbing. He kills Annie's boyfriend when he's older, and that's just a memorable scene because he obviously picks him up, stabs him, which leaves him hanging on the wall, and then he just sort of sits there and admires his handiwork. Tilts the head, which I think Michael was the first one to do that. We've seen it a ton of times since, but still, it's a very memorable kill. And then, like I said, choking Lynda to death is probably one of his most brutal murders. Now the remake. The remake, there's a ton of more deaths, and they're very brutal because it's Rob Zombie, very violent. Just some of them is, of course, him killing his sister, but there's a lot to that. He kills his stepfather, he kills the sister's boyfriend, and then he viciously stabs his sister some 16, 17 times as she's running away from him in the hallways. A lot more brutal, that's for sure. Even him wearing what was to be the Michael Myers mask while he did it. The scene where he kills the nurse in the hospital, it's right after he was talking, or he wasn't even talking. By this point, he had stopped talking. And his mom was there. The mom is leaving with Loomis. And as they're leaving, Michael kills one of the nurses. Sure, she was being a bitch to him, but he kills her with a fork. And when the mom comes back and sees, she takes the mask off of Michael, and he is screaming. He's incensed. He has this insane look on his face. That's when the mom realizes Michael is too far gone. There's no saving him. The visits aren't working. Loomis isn't working. And Sherry Moon Zombie as Michael's mom, that's something I should mention because she brought such a weight to the character. You felt really bad for her. Last but not least, I want to talk about in the remake when Michael kills Laurie's foster parents. Vicious because it's so quick. He immediately comes up to the father, cuts his throat, comes into the house, goes after her mom, and when her mom realizes he's going after the daughter, he has a picture of her, he's showing it, and she's screaming, and it's brutal. She's crawling away, blood everywhere. He snaps her neck. It's hard to watch, especially because you could tell they were just good people, but it's effective at showing how dangerous Michael Myers is. Let's talk about the score, because I already mentioned John Carpenter's score. It's so iconic. Not just that, sure, it's iconic, it's classic, it's memorable, but even just how effective it is. This guy was able to set a tone because there was no blood, because it might not be as violent as horror movies are nowadays. It still creates the mood and atmosphere enough to make it scary. The music almost is as scary as Michael Myers himself. In the remake, you have Tyler Bates. Tyler Bates is one of my favorite composers for horror movies, especially. It's so visceral, and it matches the violence going on. And then let's compare the endings really quick before I give my verdict. Loomis shoots Michael just in time to save Laurie, and then Michael falls off of the balcony, and then when Loomis goes to check, Michael's gone. Wow. It's one of the best. If you're going to have a cliffhanger for a horror movie, that's the way you do it, because sure, you have a character seemingly save the day, it's not downbeat and depressing, but you still don't kill the villain. You still don't completely say it was easy to kill him because he's still out there. And then the ending to the remake is, well, like I said, Michael tackles Laurie, runs at her, tackles her off the balcony. Very, very cool. As you wake up and Laurie is covered in blood. You could tell she's been through hell. And then she finally shoots him. She shoots him, what looks to be in the face, and then she screams for just either insanity or for having to survive something like this. Both endings are very effective. Overall, when it comes down to it, I think there would have been a time when I would say that the remake is better. There would have been a time, like when it first came out, I was very like, this is different. I was very into the violence and the differentness and the backstory and just what they did. But I'm going to give it to the original, ultimately. I can go back and watch this original and appreciate it so much more, appreciate how the movie was made, and how much more scary they can make Michael without having to go that far. So trust me, I'm not copping out. I'm not trying to avoid people hating me. If my real answer was the remake, I would say it. But now, when you watch them back to back, it's just, the original is a better made movie. It really is. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of my verdict? Do you agree, disagree? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!